Hey everyone. Looks like we have a few people trickling in. We'll give some time for everyone to get in. All right. Well, really appreciate everyone taking some time out of their day. Looks like we have quite a few people join us, so we're really excited. Today we have Amanda and Robert with us. We were able to record this a little bit earlier. We wanted to make sure that logistically we were going to have Amanda and Robert be able to share everything that they wanted to share. So really, I will be sharing here in a second a video of just a conversation that we had on the topic of rage giving. I'll play that here in a second. But for today, really just wanted to share the insights on rage giving, what is happening right now in the world, and the trends that we're currently seeing in terms of fundraising. So really just the valuable insights that Robert and Amanda see every day, speaking with our clients as customer success managers here at Good United. After that, we will have some time for some live questions and answers. Additionally, I will share just a resource with everyone so you guys can follow along with the conversation as it happens. Without further ado, I'll share the resource here in the chat for everyone. Along the way, feel free to answer any questions. We'll be monitoring the chat along the way, and we'll be sure to answer those questions at the end. Awesome. Well, I will go ahead and share the video. Hope you guys enjoy and have some key takeaways on rage giving to take away from. One doing?
Good, Nico. Doing good.
Yeah, you guys good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate everyone joining us today. I guess we can start with a round of introductions real quickly for anyone that is unfamiliar. My name is Nico. I am an account executive here at Good United. And with me today, I have Robert and Amanda, who are our customer success managers here at Good United. Robert, let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nico. Good to be here with you, Amanda. Thanks everybody for coming. So my name is Robert Huffman. Been here at Good United for about 3.5 years. Before Good United, I used to work in finance for 5 years and then took a hard pivot in my career to work for a nonprofit named Movember, hence the mustache on myself and Nico. So worked at Movember in development for a few years, working corporate development and community development, focusing on colleges, getting young people involved in the organization. And that's where I cut my teeth on fundraising. And then I moved over to Charleston, met Nick and Jeremy, and been on this voyage of working with nonprofits on social media here for the past 3.5 years as an enterprise customer success manager.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. And Amanda?
Hi, I'm Amanda, and I worked in the nonprofit fundraising mostly. I was an executive director as well for a national organization. But I've done fundraising with organizations as small as grassroots up to the national level. And I've been in nonprofit technology for about 5 years. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be able to let off a little steam about what's going on right now, both around the country and specifically within the nonprofit industry.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Amanda. Well, I know today, obviously, the topic is rage giving. So I wanted to turn it over to Robert and Amanda just to ask your insights. And I guess a good place to start would be, you know, explain to our audience really what is rage giving as kind of a place that we could start, and then we can go from there.
Cool.
All right. So when I was thinking about this, rage sounds, like very strong. I actually relate personally. I relate to rage giving. I also relate to mom rage as an individual. So maybe that's why it feels a little bit more comfortable. But when I was thinking about all the different types of giving we are looking up and doing research about, it kind of relates to the stages of grief. So rage giving is like one way that people might be feeling right now, but other people might be feeling sad or looking for hope. So that feels like a little bit more digestible for a broader audience. What do you think?
Yeah, I have a different take. I actually I actually hate the term rage giving. Um, Simply because it comes off as fairly negative when actually a lot of people are looking to do something very positive. So my take, comes from like working at Movember actually of, introducing the concept of what we are bringing to the world with our mission, giving people the chance to learn about it so that when the time comes, when they are enraged or sad or going through grief, they know who to turn to. So it's more about being there at the right time, right place, and giving people an opportunity to express their feelings and thoughts, either monetarily or just through general support, through volunteer opportunities, through donations, starting a fundraiser, even asking their friends and family to support their rage or their emotions. But I can see where you're coming from. So it's fun to hear people's thoughts on
Yeah.
the term.
I just thought when you were saying like giving people also the chance to deliver other CTAs, not just fundraising, what would we call that, like rage advocacy? I don't know, maybe that would work.
And yeah, in the end, people are always looking for something to do with their energy, right? So
Mhm.
especially with an election, there's a lot of excitement building up to this one moment in time. And then when it goes a different way than you expect, what do you do with all these emotions?
Mhm.
Who do you turn to? Where can you find community that relates to you? And I think that's what people look for. And that's where nonprofits have really served in the space for so long of giving people an outlet for them to voice their opinion, to give their money if they don't want to give it to, if they can't give it to the government to take care of something, they get to pick and choose where they want to give their money to solve exactly the pain that they're feeling or that they're seeing within society.
And that kind of reminds me about more of like at an individual level. We work with a lot of clients that have different types of like memorial giving. And so memorial giving is much more customized, but it is still grief support. So when someone suddenly dies or someone becomes sick, friends and family members want to be able to take action that gives them an outlet to act proactively in order to support either that person or that cause that is affecting their friends or loved ones. So, like I personally just lost a pet. And so the first thing I wanted to do is make sure that I was providing, able to provide all of my dog's medication that she had because she was super old and we have specialty food. And I'm like, okay, who all can I give this to help them out? Because that gave me something proactive rather than just sitting around being sad.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that, Amanda. It's really powerful. And I think, given the timing of the recent election, I was gonna ask you, Robert, and Amanda as well, with all the organizations that you guys work with, what are some of the organizations that you are seeing an uptick with people leaning in kind of post-election? Like I'm sure you guys have some examples.
Yeah, I told Nico I don't want to do this webinar unless we have real examples and data to talk about, because I think that's what's most valuable. A lot of people on this call probably know what rage giving is, and how it affects your organization is going to be different across the board. So Amanda and I both work with a variety of nonprofits, big and small, mostly on the larger scale national brands. One in particular saw a drastic change in fundraising within 3 days of the election. And it's an LGBTQ organization focused on mental health among young people within the LGBTQ community. And they saw revenue on Facebook go from less than $1,000 per day up to over $30,000 a day within 3 days of the election.
Wow.
And we ran a campaign with them the day after the election. They had a plan. The Trevor Project is who it was. And I spoke to them. I've been talking with them a lot, obviously, during the election. And they had a plan. They had plan A, B, and C. What happens no matter who wins in the election, to prepare for this moment, and you can also call rage giving moments of gray skies for your community. What does this mean for your community? Well, what they did is they spoke directly to their community and how this has affected them. So for instance, they saw an increase of 700% in call volume for their crisis center.
Mhm.
So people reaching out, asking for support, which is exactly what their mission is, giving people support in times of need with regards to mental health. So they could use data that they got in real time to show, hey, here's what's happening within our community. And then in turn, people wanted to support them and support the services that they offer. And they have seen a tremendous, support system of new supporters, past supporters come together to raise money for them. And speaking about Rage Giving, a lot of times it's not even people that support them that want to give. It's the friends and family of those people that want to support them. And so asking people to start a fundraiser on behalf of Trevor was the ask for this campaign. It's still going. It's seeing tremendous success, over 700% return on ad spend. So they're raising a lot of money for this mission, and it's driving programs that are impacting their community right now.
So I did a little bit of research, and I think it's really great to see instant reactivity in the marketplace. But I think it's really important that we also look back further and have more of a wider lens. We have more of a wider lens on what happened after the 2016 election. We have an even wider lens on what happened back in the 80s during the Reagan administration. And so some of the information that I found is that during the first Trump administration, we saw organizations like ACLU and Planned Parenthood break fundraising records, both internally and across the country. So we have hard facts that this is not just something that's happening today. It's happened before, but it is happening different today. And so one of the easiest ways, especially for Good United, since we are always operating on the Meta platform, one of the easiest ways for us to see those upticks is the business manager access on the back end of Meta, seeing donations, fundraising campaigns skyrocket literally the day after the election. And so we saw this happening, and oftentimes we were getting on the phone with clients, a couple of days after the election and saying, are you seeing a rise? And they were still like pulling together data, like, where are the donations coming in from? Who are the donations coming from? And they were seeing it across multiple platforms, which is amazing, but sometimes that makes it more difficult to spot the trends. And so I guess for us, it's a little bit more simple. We're all on one platform. At least today, we're all working off of Meta. We're seeing both styles of activity, donations and fundraising starting to skyrocket. And so that gave us a lot of fuel to start working really, really quickly. Because we also know that this stage in the grief process is only going to last for so long until the next thing. And I think that also helps us to open up of like, okay, it is great that Rage Giving is happening right now. Let's work to harness it. But what are we going to look for next? What is the next opportunity that we can start to plan around that A, B, C contingency plan?
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question to you guys.
Sorry about that.
No, great segue. Robert, you mentioned, organizations having A, B, C, D plan, right? Obviously, we had this recent election, right? Prior to that, obviously, we had catastrophic storms with Hurricane Helena coming through and seeing an uptick there as well. What are some of the things that you guys are seeing organizations doing to kind of plan ahead for some of these events that are coming down? Hopefully not, but obviously life happens down in the future.
Yeah, for sure. So I know you can also speak to this from a natural disaster perspective, but in my experience working at Movember and here, you build an annual strategy, right? Like everybody on this call has building their 2025 strategy with moments in time that are either related to your mission, awareness months or specific days that you want to draw attention to. Those are, fairly static events, right? That you plan for, that it's coming. I also recommend building a crisis plan. So you always have something in your back pocket that you can pull out in moments like these of gray skies for your community that you can draw attention to and actually educate your supporters about how this impacts not only the organization, but how it impacts them. People want to know, how is their life can be changed from this natural disaster or from this big event that might be going on. the biggest takeaway I have from these gray sky moments is actually a specific scenario when I was working at Movember. You know, like I said, I worked with college students and I was constantly sending them information via emails, social media, text about stats on mental health. You know, 3 out of 4 suicides are by men. One man takes his life every minute of every hour of every day. And while I was educating them, I got a phone call. The office got a phone call, a cold phone call. They asked for me, so I ran over to the phone and asked who it was, and it was a student. And he said he was at a funeral home, and his father had just taken his life, and he was sitting there with his mother, deciding where to give funds to in lieu of flowers.
Hmm.
It still gives me shivers because at that moment, I realized while he had never responded to an email or a text that I had been emailing him, he read the content and he knew where to turn to in a time of need.
Mhm.
So we think of Rage Giving, we think of like gray sky moments as being these big national times. When people are having gray sky moments throughout their entire year, throughout their entire life, and it's important that you plan to always be ahead of the game. You always should be there when they need you, and that means consistently running on channels. I asked the Trevor Project, hey, this campaign is going so well. Why don't you shift all your money into this campaign? And her response said, Robert, we can't do that because we can't ever leave a channel out to dry. People always need us in various channels. So while Facebook might be performing best from an ROI perspective, people still need us in email and text and other things. And so while Facebook was leading the way that time, sometimes Facebook is not leading the way, but there's still people there that need you and that will support you. And it's important to always be there from a static perspective, but and a dynamic perspective when those great times comes.
Our ads manager, Eric Seeds, used the term always be rolling. I had to write it down because I had never heard that term before. But I guess it's like an ad strategy to always have something on in the marketplace so that you're catching that new eye, so that, and you know, that's not going to necessarily return you an instant revenue stream, but in times like this, if you've had your brand out there and people know what impact you're having, then they're going to know to associate your brand with the progressive mission or values that you all might be needing to support, especially into this new administration. And another thing about that you just mentioned was the channels. And I thought that was a lot. I learned a lot during this election cycle about all new channels and how they're being used both independently and as an omni-channel approach. So one of the big impacts that were different for this election, different than any other election, was the impact of podcasts specifically. So how is your organization always rolling, always making sure that your brand and your mission awareness is out there, but in new ways to reach new audiences or people at different times in their life? So we know that content creators, that's like a big buzz. That can be anything from a podcaster to an influencer, to streamers. We know that there's been lots of organizations that have tried to get on the bandwagon of game streaming, but there's other things that people are streaming. And now I've gotten as far as I know about, I'm not an expert in anything streaming, but those are all new ways to communicate with new audiences that we're going to start seeing today. There are going to be those younger generations, there's going to be people that are activated during this feeling of grief or hope or despair, whatever it is, that weren't involved after the 2016 election. So how are you communicating with those new audiences? And maybe it's on a very specific cause or topic. We know that abortion rights have been a very sensitive topic for this election series. We know that states' rights have been very important. The VA and all of its support, and trying to overhaul so it can provide care for even more veterans. These are all hot topics that are out there today. So how are you relating your constant mission with the new things that are happening within your mission area of focus?
Yeah, and it sounds like, in summation, what you guys are saying is it's about building that brand and that community at the end of the day, right? It's cultivating that community year round and being top of mind, so they are, a place to go during these times of need. I guess Robert and Amanda, you know, in terms of building out a strategy, I know, you know, Robert, you mentioned having multiple channels and not leaving one channel out to dry. You know, obviously social media has that network effect of being able to reach so many different people, you know, essentially organically, in a lot of cases, right?
Yep.
You know, what specifically tied to social media do you think is a plan that we can start to execute on? Obviously, Good United can help in that process, but you know, outside of that,
Yeah, so in times of
Mhm.
gray skies or rage giving, you got to be able to move quick and you got to be
Mhm.
very fluid. Social media is the perfect channel for that because
Yeah.
it's known for being fluid. It's known for, people literally get their news now from social media,
Mhm.
for better or worse. And so, how can you build a plan where you can work with your, if you're a large organization, it takes a while to get
Mhm.
copy approved, especially if it's, political, even a little bit related. So how can you work with your legal team or your comms team to get some things approved um, preemptively so that you're prepared in those moments? So you can make a quick post on Instagram or Facebook and you don't have to go through the entire process of weeks getting things approved.
Mhm.
That's one thing. The second thing is um, being open to testing. And so, for instance, for the Trevor Project
Mhm.
campaign that we're running, we started off on Facebook, saw incredible results. They're always open to testing, and so we shifted to Instagram. Instagram is now seeing a quarter CPL than we saw on Facebook, so it's performing even better from a leads perspective. Their CPL is like $1.25. It costs $1.25 to get a lead in the door, and about half of them are starting fundraisers. So being able to pivot, working with your technology partner like Good United, where
Mhm.
we see what's happening industry wide and we are able to also pivot and move really quickly and test on your behalf. So I would say those two things is building a plan that's having some quality approved early, and then also um, you know being open to testing and trying new channels, working with direct messaging. That's one of the things that we're doing is speaking to your constituents directly, one to one, in a very very quick manner. We have some new features coming out that are exciting that'll help you do that. So that's those are a couple
Yeah, a
ways.
lot of pre-approvals and getting stuff, yeah, proactively in place before. That
Yep.
makes sense.
I think that it can be just like with any hot trend, it can seem really exciting to all of a sudden get on board with politics. But if that's not the brand of your organization, if your organization isn't forced to be within politics or hasn't been up until now, my personal suggestion would be to not necessarily start now. It's a very polarizing time. And there's no reason to turn off some of your supporters if that hasn't already been baked into your values and mission and so forth. But for the pre-approved stuff, I think that if you're planning ahead and you're thinking through getting board approvals for things like, okay, are we aligning ourselves with a political party? I have an interesting quote from a nonprofit organization, Earth Justice, on their website. There's a pop-up that says Trump is more prepared this time, and we are too. Like, wow, that is pointed. I know exactly where they stand. But I don't think that they've turned anybody off because that's who they've always been. So that really makes sense for them. Very similarly, with Planned Parenthood, I know that they've put out some very pointed, they've made some very specific points about what this administration is going to do that's going to change the work that they need to support. And I think that that works for them, and it always has. But there are other organizations that might be a little bit more middle of the road. And therefore, I think it's important to make sure that you're keeping it focused on what you can do next. And by you, I mean their supporter. What do you think that this is going to change for your organization? What are the steps? What type of advocacy type actions can they take during either time of grief or celebration, right? So gray sky fundraising can be lots of different things to different types of organization, but ultimately we believe that having a plan in your back pocket is going to help your organization to move quickly and to make less mistakes, like someone saying a quote that maybe not everyone agrees with, or that's going to turn off some of your supporters that can cause rough waters down in the future.
We got one more thing to add, just
Mhm.
because we also ran a campaign with Mission 22, who's a mental health organization focused on reducing the suicide rate among veterans. And so they ran a campaign called Give a Buck. Does anybody even give a buck about veterans? It was very creative, and there was a call to action to donate a buck, but there was also a campaign to just promote the campaign. So you don't always have to just ask people to donate or fundraise. People don't always just want to do that. They want to ride your coattails. In other words, they want to be associated with the mission that you're about. So what we did is we sent a direct message to all their subscribers. They have about 20,000 subscribers on Facebook, and we asked them to just share the campaign on Facebook. It went through the roof. They had about 30 shares before, and it ended up like over 1,000 shares, because people just want to share the work that you're doing, and they want to be associated with you. All you have to do is just give them the opportunity to do that. So that was another successful campaign that ran just before the election and then just after the election as well. So, take advantage of what's happening within the nation and around the world, but it doesn't have to be pointed directly to what's going on, but people want to be associated with, America and supporting our veterans. So give them that opportunity.
Yeah, so spreading awareness even, right? Not always the monetary ask.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Amanda, Robert, I really appreciate you guys providing your insight in obviously this topic. Obviously, given all the current events, there's always times for gray skies, right? No matter what organization you are. So I think, that being said, we'll take some questions. Feel free to leave your questions in the chat and we can get back to you guys. But Amanda, Robert, I really appreciate you guys and your time and providing your guys' insight here today.
Cool. Thanks, guys. If you guys have any questions for us, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. We'd love to chat with you more, either through LinkedIn or set up a call with you all individually.
And we'll answer the questions in the chat, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll answer the question in the chat.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. We did want to take some time for some questions. Feel free to leave any in the chat. Robert and Amanda will also hop off on video to help answer some questions as well. All right. All right, looking for some questions in the chat. I guess Amanda started us off. If everyone wanted to share what organization they're here with, and what your role is at the organization, put that in the chat. You're all able to add those questions into the chat. Yes, Robert, anything else that you'd like to add? Obviously, following up on that conversation that we had earlier.
Yeah, thanks, Nico. I mean, we can talk a lot about, building an annual strategy, for next year. But I think one of the biggest things is anticipating that there will be big announcements, not only political, but just throughout the world and throughout the nation and within your mission. And how do we take advantage of those times to educate your supporters? Because that's really what the goal is, right? Your supporters are supporting you because of what you're doing for a cause that they care about. So a lot of times they look to you to provide that news and provide the updates of how they're being impacted with what's going on and how they can take action and support. And so it's not always giving, right? It's not always fundraising, but how can you also give them opportunities to take part and to fulfill a call to action that can help spread awareness. And that by doing that, this will lead to, fulfilling those donation asks as well. Obviously, as nonprofits, all of our goals are to reach our budgets and reach our revenue numbers so that we can actually go into the world and actually make the change that we want to see. But how do we build in that crisis management timeline or plan for when the time comes, we're ready and prepared to take action.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see.
Looks like we have a few.
Yeah,
go.
I was just gonna bring that up, Nico. So I see that I believe I pronounced the name Dante. Do you have any advice on engaging a younger giving base? Yes, absolutely. So I think I touched on that for half a second, but taking advantage of new platforms that nonprofits can be present on. Obviously, email, direct mail have been tried and true places of engagement and revenue solicitation, but we know that the newer generations, you will be able to find them via email and direct mail, but they might not be as likely to respond to that in that location. So making sure that you have a social media presence, and that would be social media platforms of all kinds. It could be X, it could be TikTok, it could be podcasts. So a lot of local organizations are joining local podcasters to talk about their mission and the work that they're doing, especially if it's a more locally sourced podcast, meaning that the people that are listening are most likely from the same area as you. So I would really, in order to focus on the younger donors and supporters, I would focus my efforts on new areas of engagement. And that's what we saw the political parties doing during this election cycle as well.
Yeah, social media, such a powerful tool, and direct messaging, even with Good United, obviously being a piece of that. So yeah, that's exactly the best advice. So thanks, Amanda.
If I can just add to that too, just knowing what you all do at Young Invincibles, I think it's important to just, start with one young person. I know that your entire mission is focused around young people and getting young people to take action. So starting with one young person, identifying one supporter that is within that younger donor base and talking to them, see what they like, see what content that they are attracted to, and then try to scale to 2 and then 4. Instead of trying to reach the masses of young people, start with one small segment. Something else that I've learned, because at Movember I had to scale the college development program to $1 million, and I got overwhelmed. But I started with a student ambassador program, starting with one student, eventually scaling to 10, 50, 70. Show the young people in the content, right? People want to support organizations that look and feel like them. So if you want more young people to be involved, show those young people. Do simple Q&As that are on social media, so the young people can share why they support you, or do a day in the life video and ask a young person to record their life on a given day and how they support you or just what they go through. That's what's working a lot with social media, is raw content from the point of view of a specific person. So in that case, somebody who's young, who's going to class, or who's taking action in policies or politics. Those are a few things that have helped me in the past.
So, see any other questions? I saw Susan, thank you. Soon to be executive director of Orphan Disease Nonprofit. Thank you for joining us today, Susan. See any other questions from the audience? All right. Looks like that is all the questions that we have for today. Again, thank you all for your time today. We really wanted to share our insights on Rage Giving and the current fundraising trends. So Amanda, Robert, thank you again. And again, thank you to our audience for taking some time out of your day to speak with us.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.